Hello and welcome to another Fantasy Premier League video. My name is Steve and today we're taking a look at the meta strategy for the double game weeks that have been announced in blank game week 25. So if you were not already aware, game week 25 coming up in a couple of weeks is a blank with Brentford, Brighton, Man United and Newcastle all without a fixture for this game week. But we have now just had 4 new teams drop into the game week to make it a double for Arsenal, Everton, Liverpool and Wolves. So, Arsenal, top of the list. 3 Arsenal is essential. You're going to have 3 Arsenal players in your team for this run of fixtures if you want to stay with a pack and get ahead of those that are not planning to effectively. So game week 23, they've got a double, both games at home. The fixtures are Brentford first and then Man City second, so there's a big second game that. Quite a tricky one, but it is a double. They're then away to Aston Villa, and the double in game week 25 is away to Leicester and at home to Everton. So 2 really good fixtures, both from an attacking and defensive standpoint, and their run of fixtures just continues out past that point. You've got Bournemouth at home, Fulham away, Crystal Palace at home in game week 28, where game week 28 will be a big blank game week. So, I mean, this is why we have to have triple Arsenal, right? 2 doubles, and they play in 28. Game week 29, they've got Leeds at home. Game week 30, Liverpool away. That's an easy fixture for Liverpool. And then game week 31, away to West Ham. 32 at home to Southampton. It's just a great run of fixtures with double fixtures in there for them. And so we'll take a look at their prospects first. The top 2 assets that I think everyone should aim to own for this run of fixtures is the midfielders of Saka and Odegaard. Now, for the third spot, this will largely depend on who you currently have in your teams, the structure that you're playing with, whether you're in a 3-4-3, 3-5-2 or some other variation. But I think the next best player that you should look to fit into your teams is Nketiah up front, because although Arsenal do have to play Man City in game week 23, all the other fixtures past that point are all really good attacking fixtures for Arsenal, and the ceiling for another attacker from the Arsenal team is just way higher than filling up that third slot with another defender. Now, having said that, buying a defender is not a bad play either. These are all really good defensive games for Arsenal. So pulling in a defender that may fit better with your formation based on the team that you have is definitely a viable play. Now, if you are going with well, actually, before we go defense, let's touch on probably a bit of a pain point for a lot of you managers out there that are currently sitting with Martinelli. Now, if you do not already own Martinelli and you're looking to triple up on Arsenal, I would avoid buying him. He's becoming an issue, and that is simply because of the addition to Trossard in the team. In the very first game week that Trossard was available, he came on for about the last 8 minutes in place of Martinelli, so wasn't too much to worry about. But then in the fixture just gone against Everton, of which Arsenal lost. Now, don't be too worried about the loss there for Arsenal. Arsenal is still a great team. They're probably going to do really well in pretty much all these fixtures coming up. Everton were on a new manager bounce with Sean Dyche in charge, and I would just put this 1-0 down as a bit of a flash in the pan. But if Martinelli is in your teams, he only made it to 58 minutes in this match. It was 0-0 at the point at which Martinelli was brought off, so from that standpoint and game state, for what Arteta was thinking, he obviously wants the win. He wants to keep that that gap at the top of the table as many points over Man City as he possibly could, and so he sacrificed Martinelli to bring on Trossard in order to see if he could be the difference maker for Arsenal to get that goal. Now, fortunately, Arsenal conceded about 2 minutes after Trossard came on, and Arsenal were unable to pull that goal back and lost the match 1-0. But that's some pretty clear indication, at least in my eyes, that Arteta is looking at Martinelli and thinking, you're the first one that I want to sacrifice if I need to go and chase a win. I will probably guess that Trossard will be coming on more often in the games coming up, and you will probably see Martinelli being sacrificed anywhere from the 60-minute to the 75-minute mark for this run of fixtures. And given that these games are great games, you want players in your team that are going to get closer to 90 minutes, especially the attackers. The attackers, just the longer they're on the pitch, the more options they have to get assists and goals. Defenders a little bit less so, because if they get pulled off at the 60-minute mark and they haven't conceded, they just lock in that clean sheet. And although you may miss out on some potential attacking returns from any of the more attacking defenders in the Arsenal team, it is not as much of an issue as it is for your midfielders. And so if you are sitting with Martinelli in your squads out there, I would highly recommend moving him on some sort of sideways switch to either Odegaard or Saka if you can afford Saka. Saka being probably the best buy, Odegaard a close second. And yeah, I would probably even do that for a hit. They've got 2 doubles in the next 3 game weeks. Aston Villa smack bang in the middle. Then they go Bournemouth, Fulham, and they play in 28. Best time to take a hit for getting rid of Martinelli and getting that assurity of minutes is now with this new double that has dropped into game week 25. In terms of defense at Arsenal, if you are sitting on Ben White already in your teams, he's also looking a little bit suspect in terms of minutes too. So if you're looking to fill in your third Arsenal slot with a defender, avoid purchasing Ben White. You probably want to go with someone like Gabriel or Saliba. But my probable best pick out of the Arsenal defense is probably Zinchenko, because he looks pretty nailed on and he offers that attacking threat that Gabriel and Saliba only really offer when they get forward on free kicks and corners. Now, the reason Ben White is a bit of an issue is that Arteta has sacrificed Ben White for Tomiyasu in the more difficult fixtures when he feels like he needs a bit more solidity in defence. I think Tomiyasu is just a better out-and-out defender than Ben White, but Ben White is pretty much first choice because he offers more flexibility and attacking options. But in those games, like in that Man City game and double game week 23, I would not at all be surprised to see Ben White getting benched for someone like Tomiyasu. But I don't. This maybe like a 50-50 call there. I wouldn't be surprised to see either start. But if you're sitting on Ben White, I'm not too sure what you do. You probably do a sideways switch to someone like Gabriel Saliba or Zinchenko, even though they are more expensive. Now, that's pretty much Arsenal, the triple Arsenal options and how I think those should go. So in order, just to round that off, Saka top, Odegaard second, third, I would go Nketiah for the ceiling. He could score a hell of a lot of goals in this run here. He's very cheap, and jumping on him before Jesus is back fit and ready is probably the best play. But Jesus could be coming back at some point in the future, and so there is that little bit of a risk that Jesus will be available at some time soon. So next on the list is Liverpool. Now, there's only really 2 assets that I would probably consider from Liverpool if I was going to jump on Liverpool. But to be honest, I think Liverpool is a bit of a trap. They have not been playing very well as of late. They just lost to Wolves 3-0 in the game week just gone, and that was not a surprise occurrence. Yes, the scoreline was a bit of a surprise. I did not think that Wolves would be able to put 3 past them, but Liverpool have not been the Liverpool of old for some time now. Liverpool are actually at home to Everton in game week 23. So Everton have just beaten Arsenal 1-0. They're on the new manager bounce, Sean Dyche. Sean Dyche will look to shore up the defence. That is just what he will do. He's actually even got, I think he's been offered a £3.5 million bonus if he manages to keep Everton in the Premier League. So he's got obviously a lot riding on the results for the rest of the season. But I think Liverpool will find that Everton game pretty tricky. It looks good on paper, but who knows how that game is going to go down. If you do have a Liverpool asset or 2 Liverpool assets, say if you're sitting on Salah or Darwin, I suspect most managers out there will now hold. That double will be looking too tasty in their eyes, and they will be like, yep, sweet, everyone's going to want Salah and Darwin for the double, and a lot of managers out there are going to look to bring these 2 assets in, even though their performance has been less than wanting for quite some time. Now, the fixtures for Liverpool around this double are not great. Just before the double in game week 24, they go away to Newcastle. Newcastle have been an exceptionally good defensive unit forever this season. They have been performing just been putting up defensive numbers that have just been amazing, and they've been pulling in clean sheets left, right and centre. Now, the only caveat with that is Bruno Guimaraes, I think, is still suspended for his 3-game suspension for his horrific tackle, which does bring down the defensive stability a little bit. Might even be why Newcastle conceded 1 goal last week, the first time they'd lost their clean sheet in a while. But that is still not an easy game for Liverpool, even with Bruno Guimaraes out. I do need to check, though, if he is back for that. Probably should have checked that before I jumped on. Do a quick look. So Bruno G is suspended until the 4th of March. None of the transfer planners actually have these new doubles updated yet. Ben Crellin is amazing. He got this out really quick. He's the only fixture ticker out there with this at the moment. He does not have any dates on though, so we just go into the 28th. 25th is the start of game week 25. So the Newcastle fixture. Oh yeah, this hasn't actually been. Sorry, 24. So yeah, he won't be back for the game in 24. So Liverpool will be playing against the Newcastle team without Bruno Guimaraes in the team. They then have the double, which is Crystal Palace away and Wolves at home. But then they go Man United away, Man United at home. That's a super hard game for Liverpool. I suspect Man United will do the business over Liverpool in game week 26. They then have Bournemouth away, which is a great game, but then they do have a chance at blanking, a relatively good chance of blanking in that big blank in game week 28. So the schedule on the whole isn't amazing for Liverpool, and that's why I think this double is actually going to trap quite a lot of FPL managers out there. So just to read that back, 23 Everton at home, 24 Newcastle away, 25 double is Crystal Palace away and Wolves at home. They then have Man United at home, Bournemouth away, and then a likely blank. So that double of Crystal Palace away and Wolves at home is going to be pretty tricky for Liverpool as well. They've not been performing very well. Wolves at home. Wolves are a pretty good defensive unit. They've just lost to Wolves 3-0 at Wolves' home ground, so Wolves have shown that they can definitely shut the likes of Liverpool out. Jota won't be back for Liverpool in time. He's looking like he might be back in February the 21st. So he could potentially make it back, but I don't know if Jota would come straight back into the team. That match against Crystal Palace is on the 25th, and so there's a very slight likelihood that Jota might be back for this double. But given the injury and the time that he's been out, he might not be starting. He might come in for maybe off the bench if he is at all fit. He might be ready for that Wolves fixture though. And Luis Diaz is still out until March. And so the Liverpool unit as a whole is not going to be strengthened too much further before this double. And so they will still be playing with the same personnel that they have. Now, if I was going to choose between Salah and Darwin, who I think are probably the only two FPL assets that managers should be considering out there, I'd probably skip their defensive options at the moment. They seem to be conceding each and every week, and this run of fixtures does not... I mean, I could see Liverpool conceding in all of these games, so I don't know if I would necessarily be jumping on anyone in the defensive lineup at Liverpool, but Darwin would probably be my choice of the two between Salah and Darwin. All the opportunities in that Liverpool team seem to be falling to Darwin at the moment. They do not seem to be falling at the feet of Salah. Darwin is picking up the majority of opportunities, but Darwin is showing that he is not a very clinical finisher. He is the man that is getting the most opportunities, and I honestly think both of these picks, Salah and Darwin, if you put them into your teams, you will basically be thinking in the back of your mind, I hope these lads finally turn it on for this double. And that is a hope. So I'm not saying don't buy these guys. I mean, they could do the business in this double, but it is a bit of a big hope. And so the only reason you would be probably looking to bring them in is if the rest of your team is already very well set up for these blanks and doubles for this fixture run. Like, wasting a transfer on bringing in... Well, I don't want to say wasting a transfer because I'll probably have to eat my words if Salah goes out and does something crazy in this double. I mean, there's every possibility that Salah can go out and do amazing things in this double. He is a good player and proven in the Premier League. He has just not been on form for quite some time now. I would go Darwin if I was going to go either of the two. But in my particular setup, I don't really have a slot for Darwin. My front line currently is Haaland, Kane and Nketiah. Now, I do not want to lose any of these players out of my team. Haaland is obviously no-brainer, going nowhere from my team. I've just discussed why I want Nketiah, especially for this run of fixtures, so he is going nowhere from my squad. And Kane is just showing that he is being consistent week after week, ticking along and getting me gains in the rank. And so 16, 2, 5, 6, 8, he scored the only goal against Man City, showing that he can score against any team. I do not want to take him anywhere out of my squad. He's away to Leicester, home to West Ham, plays in 25. It is at home to Chelsea, but as I said, Kane can score against anyone. He's then away to Wolves, home to Forest, before the potential blank in game week 28. So Kane does have a very strong possibility of blanking in game week 28, but then he has a very strong potential, 35 to 65%, according to Ben Crillin, of doubling in game week 29, which is Everton away and Southampton away. Both away games, but a very good set of opponents to play against. Then plays Brighton at home and Bournemouth at home for the following game weeks after that. And so I am aiming to try and hold Kane through that blank in game week 28 if it does end up being a blank, and just hold him through. Kane's been amazing. I do not want to go anywhere from him, and he would be the only make way for Darwin. And like I said, I would just be hoping that Darwin does something in that double, whereas Kane, I would be more than happy to play against Chelsea instead for that game. It is against Chelsea, isn't it? Spurs, yeah, Chelsea at home. I'd be more than happy to play Kane instead of Darwin, because I know that I would want Kane straight back for that run of fixtures afterwards, hold him through that blank in game week 28 and have him ready for that double and the very kind fixtures afterwards. So next on the list is Everton. Now Everton's a bit more interesting. Like I said, they've got Sean Dyche looking after the team now. Came in, got a victory straight away against the league leaders in Arsenal, showing that he's been an amazing appointment to the team. The double for Everton is not amazing. They play Aston Villa at home, but then they are away to Arsenal. Now, in the run-up, they play Liverpool away this week, Leeds at home, game week 24, Nottingham Forest, game week 26, Brentford at home, game week 27, and then it looks like they are going to play in the big blank in 28, but it is away to Chelsea. Now, my plan for what I'm going to do with Everton is buy a bench player. I'm going to go super cheap, have someone that's just going to sit on my bench for most of these games, probably play that bench player in game week 25, because some of the other players in my team are blanking and I do not want to sell them for this blank. I want to hold my defensive assets of Trippier and Botman. The double Newcastle defense has been amazing for me. I do not want to lose them and have to buy them back. There is a small chance that Newcastle do double in 26 as well. They play in 28 as also, and that is away to Nottingham Forest. So that is a great fixture for Newcastle in the big blank. It's another reason why I don't want to jump off this double Newcastle defense, because I'm almost certainly going to need them back in game week 28. And then they have a chance of doubling in game week 29 as well. If it does not happen in 29, it looks like it is going to happen in 30 or 31 also. So to sell one of the Newcastle defenders just to avoid this blank at 25 just looks like I'm going to end up wanting to jump straight back on Newcastle again, and so I do not want to do that. And probably the easiest way to do so is to actually have a really cheap throwaway sorry Everton fans, but throwaway FPL option that's just going to sit on my bench and come in to, bolster up the numbers in those blanks where I might be fielding only 9 or 10 players. Now at the moment I have Patterson in my team. He's expected back 18th of February, which is actually before this double, but whether or not he's still in the team is anybody's guess, because Sean Dyche is the new manager in charge. Patterson was playing consistently for Everton beforehand, but he has been injured for quite a while, and whether or not he comes straight back into the team I will not know, and so it'll be one of those things where I think I just hold on and see if he's actually going to be available for this match. If he is available and say starts in this home fixture to Leeds in game week 24, I will just start him in game week 25 and be done with it. Grab hopefully a clean sheet against Aston Villa and take my 1 or 2 points against Arsenal if he manages to play. Now, if he looks like he's fallen out of favour and is not in the starting lineup, Tarkowski at 4.2 million is the other cheapest option in the Everton lineup. He looks like he's nailed on. So we just go in here. Tarkowski, 4.2 million, has been playing 90 minutes solidly all season. Looks like he's going nowhere. He is the cheapest option next to Patterson, who looks like he is nailed on to play. Mikolenko at 4.3 million also looks nailed on. If you want to, I mean, Tarkowski, Mikolenko, it's probably not a hell of a lot in that. Coleman at 4.4 has been in and out of the team. He got 90 minutes in the first match under Sean Dyche. Only got a half against West Ham the game week before. That was under the old manager, 68, 27, 20. So he's been in and out of the team. It's going to be very hard to tell whether or not he has earned his way back in or not. But I think we can just wait and see up until game week 25. So keep a close eye on what's happening in game week 23 and 24 for any of your Everton assets, and they could be a really good option that's cheap to just chuck on your benches and fill out your squads in the blank game weeks coming up. And finally, Wolves, the other team that will be doubling in game week 25. Now, they look like probably the better option out of Wolves and Everton. For the run-up, at least, they have Southampton away in 23, Bournemouth at home in 24. Two pretty good fixtures, especially from the clean sheet potential. I would not be looking at any of the Wolves attackers. To be honest, there's too many other good attackers in the game anyway, just for this to chuck in an attacker for this double of Fulham away and Liverpool away in 25 is very hopeful. First of all, you've got to hope that Wolves actually manage to score, and then you also have to have that person that does score locked into your team. They then go Tottenham at home in 26, Newcastle away in 27, and a potential blank in 28. So again, not a great set of fixtures. Wolves would also be another buy a really cheap bench option that you're not going to play very often. You could chuck in for this double in 25 to avoid some of your other players that might be blanking. So if you're holding on to Newcastle, Man United or Brighton assets in the defence, you could potentially bench them for a doubler of someone from Wolves. Unfortunately, Bueno, who is in my team, the cheapest option, was getting pulled a little bit early, but was consistently starting. So, game week 18, 72 minutes, game week 19, 78 minutes, 20 he got 82 minutes, 21 he got 80 minutes. But then he got benched and did not even make it onto the pitch for the home fixture against Liverpool, where they won 3-0. That's a bit worrying. Lopetegui might look at that and go, potentially we play the same team that just went out and absolutely smashed Liverpool. I mean, you wouldn't you? So Bueno might be on the bench again this week for a pretty good fixture away to Southampton. Not that I would be looking to play Bueno this week anyway. The rest of my players in the team are already... I mean, my team's looking really good for game week 23. It's on screen here. I will read it out after this, but no, I don't think anyone will be looking to play any of the Wolves players until game week 25, only to deal with that blank. So if Bueno does start in game week 23, he could be a great option down at 3.9 million to chuck on your bench. It's just a really cheap player that can just come onto the pitch when you need him. But if he does miss this fixture against Southampton and the fixture against Bournemouth, you're obviously not going to buy a Bueno. I think the probable best pick out there would be Max Kilman at 4.3 million, which is another super cheap budget enabler that could just sit on your bench and fill in for this week. Well, not this week, but the double game week coming up. So that's my initial thoughts. Triple Arsenal, essential. Salah and Darwin, honestly, I think they will probably end up trolling a lot of managers. I think a lot of managers will end up holding on to them now, which may not be the best move for their teams anyway. It will probably trick a lot of managers into that. Everton and Wolves are both great investments for very cheap defensive options on your bench. I don't think I would be going out and buying any of their attackers, given the amazing selection of attackers that we have available to us this season at pretty kind sets of pricing. And yeah, that's how I would deal with double and blank game week 25. And if I'll just quickly read through my team for game week 23, I've got Kepa and Net away to West Ham, Luke Shaw away to Leeds, the double Newcastle defence away to Bournemouth. A lot of away fixtures, but they're all against pretty decent teams, well, teams where there's a decent option at a clean sheet. I then have my triple Arsenal all doubling against Brentford and City at home, which is Nketiah, Saka and Odegaard. Those guys are already locked in. I've got Rashford away to Leeds, De Bruyne and Haaland both with their doubles at home to Aston Villa and away to Arsenal, and Kane up front away to Leicester. De Bruyne will probably be sitting in my team now for the double. Nottingham Forest away in 24 is a great fixture for City. And then he plays Bournemouth in game week 25. Now, I will be probably holding Kevin De Bruyne up until this point. And I do not know if I will be switching De Bruyne across to Salah. I doubt it. I think I would probably just prefer to hold De Bruyne and play him in a really good fixture away to Man City, even though Liverpool do have what looks like a pretty decent double of Crystal Palace and Wolves. Now, I say that now, potentially we get up to game week 25 and things change. Maybe De Bruyne gets benched again like he was against Tottenham in the City double. I think De Bruyne will start both these games, and so I'm definitely holding on to him to see whether or not that happens. If I see De Bruyne's minutes drop off, I will definitely reassess and change until then, but this is a decision that I do not have to make right now. It's something that I can push out until game week 25. And so that is my plans for the foreseeable. So if you did make it this far through the video, please do consider giving it a like, and if you are new around here, hit that big red subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified about all FPL content coming your way. And until next time, I'll catch you again shortly.